if any character is sitting alone with Andor, just assume he's going to shoot them in the face by the end of that conversation. Hello and welcome to Voice of the Fat Mantis, and you're watching my review of Star Wars Andor, Episode 6, the one with the heist. Oh man, I really enjoyed this. As I've said before, I felt last episode was just a 30-minute talk fest because I knew this one was going to be an action fest. Now, it may not be an action fest, but it had enough action to blow my mind. It had enough thrills, spills, twists, and it was an hour-long episode. It had even TIE fighter chase in it. It was a good time, start to finish. I'm going to watch this episode multiple times before the next one, and it left me on a cliffhanger where I can't wait to see the next one. This is the Star Wars we need, and haters, be damned. Before we get any further, I would love it if you liked, shared, and subscribed to Voice of the Fat Mantis for more Andor reviews and analysis. The episode starts off, and as the pilgrims try to make their way up the Valley of Despair, we have our main characters acting like the stormtrooping Imperial officers they were supposed to be, and all the marching and all the training that we've seen them in past episodes do totally takes to fruition. And I believed it. I looked at them and I said, if I was a rebel, I would shoot those bastards because they look certainly like Imperials. It's not just that they're stealing from the Imperials, they're stealing from one particular colonel and his wife and son, which is just adds to the griminess level. But yo, that's how it is to be a rebel. Now, before we get into that aspect, I want to point something out about our pilgrims. Our pilgrims are headed up there, and the Imperials just don't like them. It's not that they do anything. They're peaceful monastics. I don't even think they are part of the rebellion. But the Imperials just have a general level of disdain for these people. It's very similar to medieval times. And they're like, want to ruin their holy trip. And so instead of blatantly doing it, they passively do it. And so along the way stations, they get very cheap bars and taverns made out of huts where people are just selling vice to them. And they're trying to coax these poor monastics from giving up their pilgrimage up the mountainside. And they get what started out to be, I think they said the number was 500 people moving up the mountainside. It ended up to be just 60 of them who still the true faithful who are able to resist the temptations. It shows the griminess of the Imperials and probably gives another justification for a rebellion in the first place, which is something I love about this series. Very often in a lot of Star Wars, we're told that the Empire is bad, but we're not given really good reason why they're bad. Why are they bad? They seem to love giant weapons and bases and a large military, which means they employ people. Probably good for the economy. So what is so wrong with them? Now, if you read novels or go into the expanded universe, you'll definitely see why they're bad. But I like to see it finally in live action. They're just scumbags. And so when the heist takes place, there's this wonderful scene where they reveal themselves. They capture the colonel and his yes man, and they capture the wife and all these things, and they got guns on them. And the first thing they say is, we're going to pop the kid if you do not cooperate with us. And guys, the guy who runs the facility pulls out blaster, and he's got 6 rebels with weapons on him, and he points them at one of them, and he says, let the boy go. And this is the ultimate illustration of what the series has been doing so far. It's not their primary statement, but one of their statements is the humanization of Imperials. Too often in Star Wars, we see white-clad stormtroopers masked and getting blown up, thrown into space, shot, and we really don't care what happens. Sometimes if it's a really good kill, we'll laugh at them. Or some Imperial who seems to be a douchebag we know nothing about, he gets blown away by a rebel. We love it, right? But this shows you, and this goes back to something they used to say during the Cold War era, even the Russians love their children too. And it's true about the Imperials. They love their children. All these men have families or homeworlds or are fighting for wives and children and something. This man, in the example I'm giving, he was not blood related to the boy, but he knew that these terrorists should not be allowed to point weapons at a little kid. It was beautiful. Of course, he gets wasted almost instantaneously. So there's that. When the actual heist takes place, I love the way they do that. Now, in every heist movie ever encountered, when they're planning, They do not fully illustrate what they're doing. They give us certain tidbits about it, but it's really hard to understand when you're looking at blueprints what they're going to do. And I had no idea that they were going to make the guys in the hangar load the ship. And I love that part, that they're like, you want to live? You're going to work for us. And they make them like, it's almost like somebody forcing someone at gunpoint to dig their own grave. It was awesome. Of course, everything goes wrong. Everyone's getting blasted. And I got to say, my man, the one rebel I bothered to remember his name, Lieutenant Gorn, is shot dead. And I really like that guy. One of his best lines of the episode is when his colonel said, "You're a traitor. They'll hang you for this." And he said, "I've been working for you for years. I deserve worse than a hanging." Died noble, so R.I.P. there. They're able to take off, and of course Nemec, our little nerd boy, is totally injured. He may have literally fractured his spine in the injuries, and even though he's dying and doped up, he's able to use his little doohickey to navigate them at times, but what sparks a really great chase scene. We get to watch the TIE fighter pilots get suited up, and they get into their things. I felt like it was Top Gun, but for space. And the TIE fighters go after their freighter, and they're going as the asteroid field is flying overhead, crashing into the atmosphere, making a multicolor spectacle of lights above them. They're just flying and dodging and just trying to make it out there. And they do make it out, our rebel heroes. But it was great to see. It was really one of the best chase scenes I think Star Wars has ever had. And I'm glad that I got that opportunity to see it. Now, here's where things get a little wonky. I was like a little weirded out. There's a debate as to whether Nemec should be brought into a doctor or they should immediately go to where they're dropping off the money. And actually, Blondie, I'm sorry, I don't remember many of the rebels' names, is like, no, we're going straight to where we're supposed to go. We're following the plan. But the guy from Girls, he is saying, no, let's get him to a doctor. And Andor is the split decider, and he's the pilot, and he's like, we're taking him into a doctor. And so they do that, and it kind of shows you who's the hardened rebel and who really cares, right? Established right then and there. They get to this doctor, and he looks like he's a very interesting species of a Maz Kanata, but he's got 4 arms, and he's much bigger. And he's working, trust me, if you want a surgeon to work on you, it's a surgeon with 4 arms. Fortunately, he is unable to save the patient. But meanwhile, outside, while Andor's taking a smoke break, the guy from Girls sits down next to him, and he sits down and he tempts him like he's the devil on his shoulder. He says, we could split the money, we could leave while they're in there in surgery. We could just take off, we'll split it down the middle, and we'll just vanish. And he's like, what about your brother? What about your Revenge of the Empire? And he says, that was all a lie. Now, as I've said when I started this video, anyone who sits down with Andor, we should just assume is going to end up getting shot in the face. And that is clearly what does happen. However, the thing is before it's able to be revealed, what I was taking from that scene is that the rebel, the guy from Girls, was trying to tempt him to see if Andor was loyal. I don't think he was really going to go through with that. But Andor does not want to wait for him to finish his ploy and just lays him out. That did not go the way I thought it was going to go. And so then he heads in, and like a true honest guy is like, he could have robbed everybody of everything. And he's like, I'm leaving you. He tells him what happened, and he says, I'm taking my portion of the money. And he has the decency to even go here, which they've already established that the Kyber crystal is worth a lot of money. And he just shows character. He takes it off, and he hands it to Blondie, and he says, give this back to your old friend. And then he just takes off. I think it's a great way to end it because I don't know where Andor is going. I hope he's not stupid enough to go back to his homeworld and give his mother money. No, you can Western Union her, man. You need to go the opposite direction. But I am super curious as to where this is headed. As I've said before, we've got these mini arcs. Every 3 episodes is its own arc. So next week we'll start a new one, and I can't wait to see where he finds himself. He's probably going to resume his mission to find his sister. Is it possible that she's going to end up being everybody's favorite Imperial Security Bureau agent? Who knows? Well, we can't wait until next Wednesday. The real question is, what did you think of this episode? Please let me know down in the comments. Obviously, I loved it. I'm going to be watching it multiple times before next week happens. What about you guys? Also, remember to like, share, and subscribe to voice of the Fat Mantis, for more Andor review analysis and all the nerd news that's fit to print. Till next time, ciao for now.